I've never been a superstitious person. I don't believe in signs or destiny or any of that. I trust logic. I trust explanations. But there are moments when your instincts take over so violently that logic doesn't even get a vote. This happened about 3 years ago, and since then, I don't stop at gas stations late at night unless there are other cars around. I was driving alone on a rural highway, somewhere between two small towns I can't even remember the names of. It was close to midnight. My fuel light had been on longer than I'd admit to anyone, and the road was completely empty. No streetlights, no houses, just trees packed so tightly on both sides they felt like walls closing in. When I finally saw the glow of a gas station ahead, it felt like a lifeline. As I got closer, the relief faded. The place looked old, barely holding together. One squat building, 4 pumps, flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed and stuttered like they might give up at any second. No brand logo, just a cracked, faded sign that read Fuel and Mart. The moment I pulled in, my chest tightened. 6 people were standing near the side of the building. They weren't sitting, they weren't talking, they weren't smoking or checking their phones. They were just standing there, too close together, almost shoulder to shoulder. Their clothes were normal, forgettable even, but everything else about them felt wrong. Their posture was identical, their bodies angled toward the road. And when my car rolled into the lot, all 6 of them turned their heads at the exact same time. I told myself I was tired. I told myself I was imagining things. I parked at the pump farthest from them and stepped out of the car. The night air felt thick, heavy, like it didn't want to move. As I started pumping gas, I became painfully aware of how quiet everything was. No insects, no wind, just the low hum of the lights above me, and the feeling of being watched. When I glanced over, all 6 of them were staring straight at me. Not whispering, not blinking, just watching. One of them smiled. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't threatening. It looked rehearsed, like someone who had practiced a smile without ever understanding what it was supposed to mean. That's when my stomach dropped. I looked away and focused on the pump, forcing myself to breathe normally. That's when I noticed something that made my skin crawl. They were all marked. Each of them had the same symbol somewhere on their body. A small patch on a jacket, an engraving on a belt buckle, a faint outline drawn on someone's hand. A simple geometric shape, circular, intersected by sharp lines. I'd never seen it before, but they all had it. One of them stepped forward, slowly. The others stayed where they were, perfectly still. He didn't come straight toward me. He stopped a few steps away and tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear, like I was being evaluated. My hands were shaking as I finished pumping gas. I twisted the cap back on too hard, almost dropping it, and then I heard footsteps behind me. "Long drive tonight," a woman said. Her voice was calm, too calm, smooth in a way that didn't feel natural. I turned around, keeping space between us. She stood about 10 feet away, wearing the same empty smile. Up close, her eyes didn't look tired or angry. They looked hollow. "Yeah," I said. "Just heading home." She nodded slowly. "People don't usually stop here unless they're meant to." The words hit me like ice water. Before I could respond, the others took a step forward, all at once. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't random. This wasn't a group of strange locals. This was organized, deliberate, like I'd walked into the middle of something I was never supposed to see. I didn't say another word. I dropped the nozzle, jumped into my car, and slammed the door. As the engine roared to life, they started walking toward me. Not running, not shouting. Calm, certain, like they already knew how this was supposed to end. I threw the car into reverse, tires screaming as I backed out of the lot. In my rearview mirror, I watched them stop right at the edge of the light. They didn't chase me. They just stood there, watching. As my headlights swept past the building, I saw it, painted across the wall, huge and impossible to miss, was the same symbol they all wore. I reported the station the next day. A week later, I went back with a friend. It was gone. No pumps, no building, no sign. Just an empty gravel lot, like nothing had ever been there at all. But sometimes, late at night, when I pass a lonely gas station on a dark stretch of road, I swear I see that symbol, scratched into a pump, carved into a bathroom door. And every time, I don't slow down, because I don't want to find out what happens when you stop where you're meant to. I used to think cults stayed hidden, deep in forests, abandoned buildings, places you had to seek out. I never thought one would find me under buzzing fluorescent lights while I was buying gas like any other night. That's what still gets to me, how ordinary it all looked. This happened late, after a long work trip. I was exhausted, running on caffeine and habit, and I stopped at a gas station just off the highway. It looked newer than it felt. Clean pumps, bright lights, open store. Nothing screamed danger. Nothing warned me to turn around. Inside, there were only two other people. One man stood behind the counter. The other leaned casually against a refrigerated drink case. Both looked completely normal. Too normal. The kind of normal you don't question. I paid and turned to leave when the man by the drinks spoke. Long drive? Friendly, casual, the kind of thing people say every day. I answered without thinking. That was my mistake. We talked for a minute. Where I was coming from, how far I still had to go. Harmless stuff. The clerk didn't say much, just watched us, eyes calm, almost curious. It felt like I was being observed rather than listened to. Then the customer tilted his head slightly and asked, "You ever feel like you're wasting time just moving forward?" The question hit wrong. Not aggressive, not joking, too specific, too deliberate. I laughed it off and gave a generic answer, but he didn't smile back. He stepped a little closer, not invading my space, just close enough to make walking away feel awkward, intentional. "We help people with that feeling," he said. "People who were tired of drifting." The clerk nodded. That's when the air changed. Not suddenly, slowly, like warm water cooling around you until you realize you're freezing. They started talking about stillness, about how most people fear silence because silence strips you down, how movement is just another way to avoid who you really are. Their voices were calm, steady, almost soothing. Nothing extreme, nothing overtly dangerous. Everything framed as choice, as clarity. "You don't need belief," the man said, "just willingness." That's when I noticed the symbol. A small one, etched on his ring, the same shape stitched faintly onto the clerk's sleeve. A circle crossed by clean, intersecting lines. Simple, Repeated. Deliberate. My chest tightened. They weren't asking questions anymore. They were describing me, my exhaustion, my restlessness, how people like me end up driving late at night, how isolation makes you easier to hear. Every word landed too precisely, like I was reading from notes they'd already written. "That's why you're here tonight," the clerk said quietly. "Not for gas." I stepped back. The customer smiled, patient and calm. "We don't force anyone," he said. "That matters to us. You leave when you want, or you stay." He gestured toward a door behind the counter. No sign, no markings, just slightly open, darkness spilling out like it had weight. "What's back there?" I asked. "A quieter place," he said, "where people stop being alone." My heart was pounding hard enough that I could hear it. I glanced at the exit. The customer shifted his stance, not blocking it, just reminding me it was a privilege, not a guarantee. They explained more then, how individuality was a fracture, how resistance was pain caused by motion, how surrender wasn't loss, it was relief. They talked about people who joined and never needed to leave again. I asked what happened if someone changed their mind. The clerk's smile slipped, just slightly. "Most don't," he said. "By the time they understand, they're grateful." That's when I heard it. A soft click. The front door locking. Not dramatic, not loud, just final. I didn't panic, at least not on the outside. I forced my breathing to slow, told them I felt dizzy, said I needed air, said I'd be happy to talk, just not inside. They exchanged a look, curious, measuring. The customer shrugged. He said, "Fair." He unlocked the door. The second it opened, I ran. Not to my car, past it, around the side of the building, straight into the dark edge of the lot. I heard voices behind me, not angry, disappointed, like I'd failed something important. I didn't stop until another car pulled in, headlights flooding the station with light. When I looked back, the side door was closed. The clerk stood alone behind the counter. The other man was gone. I left without gas. I reported it the next day. The station existed, the clerk existed, but no one matching the customer's description worked there. No one remembered him. A week later, an envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a blank card with that same symbol printed in the center. On the back, 4 words were written neatly in ink. "Stillness is always open." I burned it. But sometimes, when I'm somewhere quiet, and that strange calm starts to settle in, I remember how close I came to staying, and how easily I might not have walked out at all.